9 U.S. Presidents Assassinated by Globalists by Larry Engel. This is Article 16 on the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, the brother of President Kennedy, in Los Angeles after he had won the Democratic nomination for president. This article is about Robert Francis Bobby Kennedy, assassinated June 6, 1968, following his winning of the California primary, assuring that he would become the Democratic Party candidate for President of the United States, and certainly the next president. He served as a United States Senator for New York from 1965 until his assassination. As the 64th U.S. Attorney General from 1961 to 1964, he served with and was appointed by his brother, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who was also assassinated by the Globalists. He served as a very close White House advisor to his brother. In my article on the assassination of JFK, I point out 11 ways his administration opposed the globalist agenda, which served as the motive behind the President of the United States being assassinated. These would also apply to RFK, or Robert Kennedy. Most people called him Bobby. In the White House, they were a close team. He was the number 2 man. In this article, I examine an evidence cover-up by a police chief suspected of being a CIA operative and a globalist pawn. And I tell of an honest coroner with high integrity who paid a price for revealing the truth. And there's a mind-controlled Manchurian candidate fall guy who was convicted and sent to prison for life, but he could not have shot Kennedy. A satanic ritual called misdirection was used in this assassination. Some of these are quotes that I take from the encyclopedia, like, "It has been widely commented that Robert Kennedy's campaign for the American presidency far outstripped in its vision of social improvement that of President Kennedy. Robert Kennedy's bid for the presidency saw not only the continuation of the programs he and his brother had undertaken during the president's term in office, but he also extended those programs. These programs would oppose the agenda of the European banking cartel and would benefit the nation and the people." Bobby Kennedy made urban poverty a chief concern of his campaign, which in part led to enormous crowds that would attend his events in poor urban areas and in rural parts of Appalachia. Great big crowds, all cheering for Robert. Central to Robert Kennedy's politics and personal attitude to life and his purpose was his Catholicism. He was a Catholic, which he inherited from his family. Bobby was easily the most religious of the 3 brothers. Whereas President Jack maintained an aloof sense of his faith, Bobby approached his duties with a Catholic world view. Throughout his life, Kennedy made reference to his faith, how it informed every area of his life, and how it gave him the strength to re-enter politics following the assassination of his elder brother. Globalists are Luciferian. They are vigorously anti-Christian and anti-Catholic. They would not even consider the Kennedys to be human beings. They would consider them to be cattle or donkeys, some form of livestock, goy, to serve as their domestic animals. The normal person cannot imagine how depraved and ruthless the globalists really are. Assassinating political leaders around the world is like a mindless, thoughtless habit to them. It's like an automatic reptilian response. Fight or flight. You threaten our power or our money, and we kill you. It's just a reflex action. It's a brainstem flight or fight response that's been created by selective breeding. Mass murder of the common man, the middle class and the lower classes, by the elite, by the globalists, is a given. Huge numbers of people will die. And their expert Brzezinski says it's really easier for the globalists to kill millions of people than to have them to change their opinion, to convince them that they should be ruled over and made slaves. They infiltrate the Vatican utilizing the Black Pope Jesuits' forced conversion Marrano Jew militant methods. Marranos were Jews living in the Iberian Peninsula, that's in Spain, who were forced to convert to Christianity but continued to observe Rabbinic Judaism in secret. The term came in use in 1492 at the time that Columbus was discovering America, and that was brought in with the Castilian Alhambra decree, revising protections in the Treaty of Granada, 1491. So the Jews and the Muslims had to leave Spain, but if they can convert, well, then they could stay. So they converted to, I think, Jesuits, and then continued secretly to follow Rabbinic Judaism. So there would be a hidden relationship between Marrano Jews and Jesuits. And Rabbinic Judaism relegates the Old Testament to folklore and replaces it with another book or books called the Talmud. After the assassination of President Kennedy, the globalists feared Robert Kennedy. He had gained a bit of a reputation. Upon hearing yet another assertion that he was ruthless, Robert Kennedy once joked to a reporter, "If I find out who has called me ruthless, I'll destroy them." That's a cute joke, isn't it? I think there's part of some seriousness in that. The CIA and other such agencies' operations are really controlled by the international global, and they treat the leaders of their own nations as mere puppets instead of their commanders. To avoid an accidental nuclear disaster during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the president ordered his brother Bobby to contact the Russian embassy and to set up a secure telephone line directly to Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev. The CIA called this treason, and they called the Kennedy brothers communists. Bobby's clandestine meetings with members of the Soviet government continued to provide a key link to Nikita Khrushchev during the darkest moments of the crisis, in which the threat of nuclear strikes was considered to be a very present reality. On the last night of the Cuban Missile Crisis, President Kennedy was so grateful to his brother's work in actually averting a nuclear war that he summed it up by saying, "Thank God for Bobby." The CIA called this contact with the Russians treason. They called the brothers communists. They used this claim to justify their own part and the part played by CIA officer James Jesus Angleton in the assassination of the president and his brother. This in spite of the fact that the people of the nation and multitudes around the world loved and admired these leaders. So all of the above information indicates Robert Kennedy would be assassinated by the globalists before he could become president of the United States. It is their standard method of operation from the time of 1830 and the formation of Skull and Bones, the society at Yale University. And this is revealed in a New Orleans deathbed confession that states Skull and Bones had poisoned President William Henry Harrison, President Zachary Taylor, President James Buchanan, who lived, and they shot Lincoln, and some other people they also shot, poisoned, so on. Like so many of the official stories in this series, when examined with diligence, this one falls apart. And here again we have another fairy tale. A fall guy patsy, a Manchurian candidate in place while the real shooter is a member of the victim's own security team, and medical doctor assassins are standing by in case they are needed. In this case, there is the destruction of evidence, disposal of witnesses, and prosecutors in fear of the wealth and power of the untouchable globalists, controlled by elements within the Bar Association. Billionaire globalists, mass media owners, order censorship of the truth and created diversion and confusion on television and radio and magazines and newspapers. This is an invisible empire and a political chain of command made possible by the printing of unlimited amounts of money in a privately owned central bank monetary system that is neither audited or supervised by the elected government of the people. And yet this monetary system controls our nation's economy. And the same thing happens to other nations around the world. Sirhan Sirhan, a 24-year-old Palestinian-Jordanian immigrant, was convicted of Robert Kennedy's murder and is serving a life sentence for the crime. He is an MK-Ultra CIA mind-controlled patsy. He does not remember that he fired the gun. Writer George Plimpton had been one of the men who had taken the gunman down during the assassination. He told the police that the assailant seemed not quite aware of what was going on. Even during the struggle with his captors, the man had what Plimpton termed peaceful eyes. I'll say that again. Sirhan Sirhan had peaceful eyes. Manchurian candidate Sirhan would have been in a deep hypnotic state. This is very clear evidence from a reliable witness. Multiple personalities are produced by trauma, either pain or fear or something of that sort. One personality, under the control of the handlers, is ordered to fire a pistol and is then commanded to immediately revert to another personality which has no knowledge of and does not remember doing so. The room full of witnesses have their attention misdirected away from the actual shooter and the firing of the assassin's gun less than 2 inches from Kennedy's head to ensure that the victim does not survive. Most assassinations are at very, very close range. This idea that they shoot with rifles from a distance or shoot from a distance is usually some sort of diversion. The person that shoots the person is very close. This idea of having Sirhan create a misdirection while the actual shooter shoots Kennedy in the back of the head, this had to be very precisely planned and coordinated. The morning after the assassination, the police still did not have the killer's, quote, killer's name. He had no ID and no fingerprint criminal record. Sirhan was disheveled and seemed nervous, and every time the subject of his name arose, he grew panicky because he was not able to remember it. Despite his jumpiness, the gunman was not hostile, not impolite. He held friendly discourse with L.A. Police Detective Jordan and answered the detective courteously. But he seemed confused, as if he really didn't understand the seriousness of the crime that had occurred. He wasn't remorseful, or he wasn't boastful. According to Detective Jordan, who questioned him, he wasn't anything. This testimony of the L.A. police detective is a second confirmation of Sirhan's deep hypnotic state of an MK-Ultra controlled subject. Since his MK-Ultra handlers were not able to reach a level with him where they would be able to imprint a confession in his mind, a faked diary was forged and planted as evidence. However, its contents were highly political, unlike the real person, unlike Sirhan's actual personality. Sirhan stated he had no connection with Bobby Kennedy. He did not even align himself with a political party. Sirhan had grown up and attended school in Pasadena, California, and was not associated with any kind of Middle East group or movement. I'll say that again. Sirhan had grown up and attended school in Pasadena, California, and was not associated with any kind of Middle East group or movement. His family was clean, with no generative germ of lawlessness, no subterfuge, or no disloyalty. However, the press continuously screamed Palestinian and characterized him falsely as an Arab activist and assassin. But he was not. The truth is, most of his time was spent in employment working with racehorses at Santa Anita Racetrack. He loved this kind of work, and this job and lifestyle fully occupied his mind. If you believe the official story, then you would believe the Easter Bunny or maybe the Tooth Fairy. The bullets that hit Kennedy came from closer up, came from a different angle, came from behind him, not in front of him. Sirhan was chosen to be the patsy because of his ethnic and national origins. He was to be fabricated into a national villain by the controlled media. The real political target, therefore, was the minds of the American people. The bad guys, good guys game, so well mastered by highly skilled Hollywood movie makers, is here turned into a real-life propaganda weapon in the Arab-Israeli conflict in the Middle East. Globalists removed Kennedy as a threat, falsely shifted blame to their enemy, and gained massive news coverage of their perversion of the facts about the status of who has been the aggressor in the Middle East conflict. The physical fact that Sirhan could not have shot Kennedy, while at the same time the propaganda machine was cranked up and ran in a very high gear, tweaks my intuition. It was all pre-planned, set up, a Hollywood-type production, directed against the best interests of our nation, and intended to influence and increase financial and military aid and U.S. involvement in the Middle East. That is why the innocent Sirhan cannot be released from prison. The whole lie would fall apart. Sirhan's lawyers have released statements claiming evidence that he was framed. What is that evidence? Sound recordings of more than one gun being fired. His lawyer states that he is not responsible for his actions because he was under hypnosis. On that day, Sirhan was not alone. 3 witnesses saw him with a woman in a polka dot dress and another man. After the shooting, his 2 companions fled the scene, but were heard and seen by 3 witnesses on their way out to say, "We shot Kennedy." The people that were with Sirhan said, "We shot Kennedy." Vincent DiPero, a college kid and part-time waiter at the Ambassador Hotel where the event took place. There was also a 21-year-old campaign worker named Sandra Serrano who saw them, and an on-duty LA police sergeant named Paul Shiraga, who, after what he had heard them say, actually called in their description. So the police sergeant, experienced police officer, heard them say, "We shot Kennedy." So how do you evaluate the following police interview transcript of the witness, Sandra Serrano, by LA Police Department Sergeant Enrique Hernandez, and this is taken from the book by Daniel E. Moldia, which is called The Killing of Robert F. Kennedy. Now, he did a good job of research. Officer Hernandez says, "I think you owe it to Senator Kennedy, the late Senator Kennedy, to come forth, be a woman about this. Don't shame his death by keeping this thing up. I have compassion for you. I want to know why. I want to know why you did what you did. This is a very serious thing. Miss Serrano responds, I seen those people. Hernandez says, no, Sandy. Remember what I told you about that. You can't say you saw something when you really didn't see it. Miss Sandra Serrano responds, well, I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. I remember seeing the girl. And in that case, she's referring to the woman in the polka dot dress who was an MK Ultra handler. Hernandez continues, no, I'm talking about what you have told here about seeing a person tell you we have shot Kennedy, and that's wrong. My note is that might be wrong because she was talking into a microphone, on a hidden microphone on her body there. Serrano responds, that's what she said. Hernandez responds, no, it isn't, Sandy. And then Sandra Serrano says, no, that's what she said. Officer Hernandez then said, look it, I love this man. Serrano says, so do I. Hernandez says, and you're shaming him. Serrano says, don't shout at me. Hernandez finishes with, well, I'm trying not to shout, but this is a very emotional thing for me. If you love the man, the least you owe him is the courtesy of letting him rest in peace. And then a strange thing occurred with Sergeant Sharaga's story of what he saw and heard. You got to remember, to be a police sergeant, you have to have some experience. You don't start off with sergeant. An official LAPD memo dismisses his testimony as due to noise and confusion. But when the author, Moldia, or the one we're quoting here, interviewed Sharaga in research for his book, the former sergeant said that the department, the police department, LA Police Department, has simply gone ahead and recanted his testimony for him. Personally, he sticks to his statement to this day. He saw the two people, the two CIA people, and heard the one talking on the microphone to the Central Command saying, we shot Robert Kennedy. In a CIA operation of this nature, Sirhan would have been accompanied by his mind control handlers. The statement overheard by two witnesses of the polka dot dress lady and the man, as they bolted away together, quote, we shot Kennedy, was a transmission on a concealed radio to their command center reporting the status in the field. Since none of Sirhan's bullets hit Kennedy, the "we" indicates 4 or more CIA Mossad agents involved, including the actual shooter, ace security guard Thane Eugene Caesar, an undercover CIA Mossad officer using that ID. His last known address was on a remote island in the Philippines. Good luck in finding him. The press interfered with Kennedy's security by demanding, on very short notice, a press conference in an area that took Kennedy into the kill zone. The press set him up. Otherwise, he would never have entered that area. Kennedy's bodyguard, Bill Barry, an ex-FBI man, after telling Kennedy of the last-minute change of plans and directing him into the kill zone, fabricated an excuse to fall behind until the shooting was over. Just outside the kitchen, 26-year-old ace security guard Thane Eugene Caesar, an undercover CIA Mossad officer, took the senator's right elbow and led him through the swinging doors. Does this not seem strange to you, that a celebrity would even be touched by a rent-a-cop? Just before he was shot, the assassin had to hold on to Kennedy in the crowd, the jostling crowd, in order to shoot him in the back of the head, while the Manchurian candidate Sirhan created the diversion. Caesar was so close that the senator was able to pull off Caesar's clip-on necktie, which was seen near the senator's hand on the floor. After he fell, of course. The Ace Security Company allowed a last-minute substitution that placed the CIA Mossad shooter into the kill zone. Mossad Sayanim, without a need to know, are called upon. First, calling an unexpected news conference in a specific location that directs the victim through the kill zone. And second, another Sayanim in a position to shift Ace security personnel, putting the assassin also in the kill zone. This is a typical Mossad assassination type of plan. Anything for the cause, Sayanim. You can look up Sayanim, see what they are. Ace security guard Thane Eugene Caesar falsely stated he was a regular employee of Ace and had worked there for 6 months. He only worked 3 temporary jobs for Ace. Undercover, he would have been moved into place as part of other CIA Mossad operations. Witnesses saw him holding on to Kennedy, pull his gun, and fire it with smoke coming from the barrel. Caesar was permitted to leave the Kennedy scene by police, where he went home and switched guns to his .38, and then returned. He was in possession of the .22 caliber gun at the time of the killing. His statement is that he sold the HR 922 pistol before the assassination, but the buyer's receipt clearly shows the sale happened some months after the assassination. The gun was later reported stolen and never seen again. Ha ha. One of Caesar's statements to the police was that he had been holding Kennedy's arm when they shot him. He didn't say when he shot him, but he said they. He said when he saw Sirhan's gun, he reached for his own. But the LAPD never asked to see his gun, nor even asked him what kind it was. There is no LAPD record on Caesar's, the real killer's, gun. No LAPD record. The analysis of an audio recording of the shooting indicated, according to forensics expert Philip Van Prague, that 13 shots were fired. Further, acoustics expert Van Prague did tests on an H&R 922 pistol of the type that Caesar had on him and concluded that an H&R 922 had been fired at exactly the same time as Sirhan's. I fail in this article to find the names of the doctors who performed the surgery on Kennedy in the hospital. Typically, though, they would be Rhodes Scholars or graduates of Tulane Medical School or members of Skull and Bones or some kind of association of that nature. But as yet, I draw a blank. But Kennedy appeared to do better before the surgery than after. And the coroner removed a bullet and fragments during the autopsy. Failure to remove these could have easily caused Kennedy's death in the hospital, and probably did. That seems a highly questionable form of medical treatment to me, to leave these bullets behind. But the doctor trail then disappears. Los Angeles coroner Thomas Noguchi conducted the official autopsy on the body of Robert Francis Kennedy on the morning of July 6th. This very experienced coroner removed one bullet intact and fragments from another. I questioned the surgery that left the bullet in his neck. How could he have survived that? At Central Receiving, doctors found the wound behind the ear and powder burns around it, which indicated that the shot that struck Kennedy was fired at an extremely close range. Noguchi, in his biography entitled The Coroner, wrote, "Until more is precisely known, the existence of a second gunman remains a possibility. Thus, I have never said that Sirhan Sirhan killed Robert Kennedy." For this public statement, the honest coroner would need to be discredited and taken down by the globalists as an example to others who would defy their power. Noguchi had exposed the deception, marked the political conspiracy to kill a candidate for the President of the United States. The shot that both Noguchi and the Los Angeles Police Department conclude it killed Kennedy, the one that entered the back of his neck, fragmented upon impact and lodged in his brainstem, was fired so close that it left thick powder burns on his skin. Coroner Noguchi estimates, and the LAPD concurs, that the shot was fired at a range of no more distance than 1.5 inches. So Sirhan was too far away. Sirhan shot from in front of Kennedy, and the senator never had a chance to turn his back towards him. While he emptied his 8-shot Iver Johnson revolver, his hand was being held down by people flat and level on a table, while he was being restrained. However, the bullets that hit Kennedy were fired at a very steep angle. 5 other people were hit, and even more bullets lodged in the wall. That is just too many bullets, too far away, too steep an angle for the official claim that Sirhan, the Arab assassin, was in fact a lone shooter. That is a Hollywood he's a villain fairy tale for public consumption. It's a lie. Why lie? The intent was to conceal globalist power and how they kill to hold on to it. In the resulting 62-page report, Noguchi stated that the shot that had killed Kennedy had entered through the mastoid bone an inch behind the right ear and had traveled upward to sever the branches of the superior cerebral artery. The largest fragment of that bullet lodged in the brainstem. Another shot had penetrated Kennedy's right armpit and exited through the upper portion of his chest at a 59-degree angle. The coroner determined that the senator's arm must have been raised when the bullet entered. Yet another, a third bullet, entered 1.5 inches below the previous one and stopped in the neck near the 6th cervical. This is the bullet that was found intact. This bullet was not removed by the doctors, contributing to his sudden decline in the hospital and ultimately his death. Checking Kennedy's clothing for telltale signs, Noguchi followed a path between 2 bullet holes in his suit coat and announced that a 4th bullet had been fired at the senator. It entered and exited the fabric without touching the senator. Later, the LA County Board of Supervisors accused Noguchi of being too independent in his expert opinions, and they fired him. Too independent in his expert opinions? What does it mean? It wasn't political enough? I mean, he's doing science. Okay. Anyway, statements of witnesses against Noguchi seemed to be more like personality conflicts. They had no substance, and they were inconsistent. And they did not dare to challenge his knowledge or skill or his scientific methods. However, the publicity did discredit Noguchi in the eyes of the badly misinformed public. What he determined about the assassination, therefore, became subject to question. With Patsy Sirhan in prison for life on a frame-up, it is not good to have a credible expert point out that Sirhan could not have done it. This was exposing their method, their power over the prosecutors, their power over the police, their powers over the court, their powers over the press, and their powers over the politicians, untouchables. Darrell Francis Gates, Mormon racist, was the chief of police for the Los Angeles Police Department from 1978 to 1992. At the time Robert Kennedy was assassinated, he was the assistant chief of police. Early in his career, Officer Gates was picked to be the chauffeur for Police Chief William H. Parker. Was Gates a CIA Mossad asset in place? Intelligence agencies would approach him. If he cooperated, it would mean career advancement and financial reward. Upon his promotion to lieutenant, he rejoined Chief Parker as Parker's executive officer. He was promoted to captain, responsible for intelligence, where he made substantial use of the Los Angeles Police Department's Public Disorder and Intelligence Division. This is abbreviated PDID. So the PDID squad under Gates was developing an international spying operation. In a lawsuit, the Coalition Against Police Abuse, that's CAPA, Kappa, okay, versus Gates lawsuit. The Coalition Against Police Abuse versus Gates lawsuit on the First Amendment grounds saw the PDID ordered to disband, and did so in January 1983. In February 1984, an out-of-court settlement awarded $1.8 million to the plaintiffs. There had been unlawful harassment, surveillance, infiltration against the political activities by the Los Angeles Police Department under Darrell Gates. In other words, under Darrell Gates, he was spying. He was an intelligence agent. And now for the great mystery of the missing door jamb and the disappearing bullets. The Free Press, in an article, raised questions about two shooters and a door jamb that had been destroyed. When the Los Angeles City Council, under pressure, demanded an answer why the piece had been done away with, Assistant Police Chief Darrell Gates responded. True, he said, there had been holes in that particular section of the door frame, and yes, the police thought it might have been bullet holes. They brought the section back to headquarters for X-ray examination. But after the test proved, quoting Gates, absolutely nothing, there was no reason to hold onto dead lumber. When the council asked to see the X-rays, Gates shrugged. Oh, they too had been done away with, he replied. Did Gates lie? Did Darrell Gates lie about that door jamb? If there were 2 bullet holes in that door jamb, what does it mean? And why would they remove the entire door frame instead of just removing the bullets for testing? I think that's what normally is done. Because if there were bullets there, and it proved 2 shooters, verified Sirhan was too far away and at the wrong angle and not behind Kennedy, proves he was a Manchurian candidate, even proves he was in deep hypnosis. The disappearing bullets indicated that Sirhan was a patsy because he was an Arab and had been selected by the European black nobility so they could turn him into an Arab villain in the press. And further, they would conceal the fact that Kennedy was a target for his political beliefs. Bobby Kennedy, like his brother President Kennedy, represent the government of the people, for the people, and by the people, and not the chosen banking elite cartel. So those 2 bullet holes, that whole panel, the existence of more bullets, more guns being fired, was very serious evidence, and it all sort of disappeared.
had more Americans killed there in the last several weeks than any time during the war. And we're now, 6 months ago, we were talking about bombing Hanoi, and we were concerned about that because we're going to kill civilians. Now we're showing large numbers of them as we bomb Saigon. I just think that we just have to change our politics. I would hope that the Democratic Party would recognize that.
There was photographic proof of 2 extra bullet holes in the wooden divider between the sets of the swinging doors at the west end of the Ambassador Hotel pantry. A freelance photographer taking generic crime scene pictures had taken photographs innocently. The Free Press, that's a newspaper in LA, the Free Press in LA said, in a photograph, Coroner Noguchi is seen measuring the distance between these bullet holes, and Noguchi said that it had been his understanding that the holes he was pointing to and measuring in the photographs were scars made by bullets. Lawyer Bigliosi also took testimony from a witness, Martin Petrutsky, who witnessed the police reconstruction of the shooting. Then Petrutsky says, quote, one of the officers pointed to the 2 circled holes on the center divider and told us that they dug 2 bullets out. And I would be willing to testify under oath that this is true. Now, if they dug out the bullets, why did they then later take out the door frame that had no evidence? Except the frame proved that they had indeed dug out bullets and there was more than one shooter. Maitre d' Angelo DiPiero concurred that as far as he was concerned, those were undoubtedly bullet holes, for he had seen a small caliber bullet lodged about 1/4 of an inch into the wood on the center divider of the 2 swinging doors. Having served in the U.S. infantry when younger, DiPiero confirmed, there's no question in my mind that this was a bullet and not a nail or other object, quoted, of course, from DiPiero. What about other evidence? Of the 3,070 interviews the LAPD had conducted in this investigation, only 301 were preserved. The results on the 1968 test firing of Sirhan's gun was missing. The test gun used for the ballistics comparison and identification was destroyed. On August 21st, 1968, 2,400 photographs from the original investigation were burned in the medical waste incinerator at the LA County Hospital. They didn't just destroy the evidence, they took it to the county hospital incinerator. Wow. The LAPD released a heavily censored version of their records in early of March 1986, but it was full of blackened outlines and missing material. Stranger yet, all the court records, all the trial proceeding records, referring to the testimony of 7 forensic experts about the crime scene, have disappeared. The files they do have do not contain any reference to the tests done on the bullet-pocked pantry door frame, nor the x-rays taken of it. Really? You mean maybe Daryl Gates lied in order to conceal that there were more than one shooter and to conceal that Sirhan Sirhan was not the killer, that someone else was? The globalists have the political and the financial power to control the prosecutors, to control the police, to control the courts and the press. Although the world knows about the truth of 9/11 and JFK and Princess Diana and other such incidents, rule of law fails when it comes up against the untouchable black nobility and the Bilderberger group, because this hideous Luciferian reptilian cabal has power over all of them. So what about the district attorney? The mystery about the disappearing door panel and disappearing bullets and its incriminating bullets did not interest the district attorney's office, and he replied, quote, Selected and partial testimony regarding trajectory of bullets will only lead to public confusion. There is no justifiable basis for further expenditure of taxpayer funds to conduct a mere fishing expedition. That's the district attorney's way of handling it. If there was a door jamb with 2 bullet holes in it, what does it mean? Why is it important that that door jamb disappeared? And why is it important that it was even taken down after the bullets had been removed, which could be tested? This proved that there were 2 shooters. And in the course of events that followed, it proves that the police, the courts, the press, everything is controlled by the globalists. I use my observation, my intuition, and my opinion to first write an article and then later to change it into a video. So I would advise you to use caution that you are hearing my opinion and form your own opinion.